And today what I'm going to be doing is walking through a framework for an economic development plan to move Vermont into a new era. And what I want to give you a little overview before we get started. I'm going to talk a little bit about our history. I'm going to talk about our current state as an economy in the state of Vermont, and some plans for moving us forward. This is going to be an overview, and then I'm going to ask that you give questions, comments, and feedback. This is an open meeting. We gave a large broadcast invitation to business organizations across the state, and I look forward to the comments that people have, because this is going to be a process where it's the input of Vermonters that actually built this plan, and it's going to be the input of Vermonters that's going to make it one that is successful in the long term. So a little bit on my background. I grew up in Heartland. I was elected at the age of 22 by my home community. I served for 11 years in the legislature, where I focused almost exclusively on economic development strategy, whether it was creating the Vermont Film Commission or the Land Recycling Act or the first broadband grants, or working with Hinda Miller to actually create the first Economic Development Committee as a standing committee in the state Senate. I also was in business. I helped build a software company in Wilder, Vermont, to 120 employees, and I currently work for Google. And I head up community affairs for the company from downtown White River Junction, Vermont. Finally, I was the head of AmeriCorps Vista under the Clinton administration. I oversaw a 6,000-person public enterprise, but a large part of our work was actually empowering people out of unemployment by helping them to start small business and to get the job training so that they could take advantage of the jobs that were emerging in their communities and help build a middle class. Over the past several months, my candidacy has been endorsed by a variety of business leaders, ranging from Will Rapp to Doug Britton, who is in the lumber business down in my area, through to Mike Lane from Dealer.com. So as I've been traveling around the state, and I've been living in the state of Vermont, doing business and working in economic development, I've been hearing a variety of different stories. And you know, they ranged from my experience at Logic Associates, where we succeeded. And we sold our company for twice our revenue. And as we were celebrating on the shipping dock, I got a phone call from the governor's office saying, "Oh my God, what happened?" And it provided me a little bit of insight of the disconnect between the way that we were approaching economic development as a state and the reality on the ground. The second is around broadband. And we think about broadband as being something that is for innovators or software types. But I talked to a manufacturer in Rockingham who does medical device manufacturing, and said that broadband was the #1 issue, because when he was trying to recruit engineers from the University of Vermont engineering program, and they found out the house they could afford had dial-up, and their iPhone didn't work in downtown Bellows Falls, they were in Colorado, because they could be. And the third example that I want to bring up was when we were doing an economic development outreach process. Hinda Miller and I went around the state, worked with some of the people here in this room, to try to figure out a new policy set to move our economy forward. We had a presentation from one of the leading economists in the state of Vermont, who will go nameless for right now. And they showed a map of the state of Vermont, and it was highlighted in red where there were a lot of jobs, and black where there were fewer jobs. You saw a nice scale of things. But when they put the map up, the White River Junction area was jet black. And I raised my hand and said, excuse me, I'm from that area, and we have the lowest unemployment in the entire state. Why is that black? And the response was, oh, the Upper Valley is a problem. Those aren't Vermont jobs. And as someone who was working at Dartmouth College at the time and feeling very good about the income I had and the coverage that I had, I realized that once again, there was a misunderstanding of the way our state works and the way that our economy works. So what I'm proposing is that we build a new vision for economic development in the state of Vermont. And that vision is actually rooted in our tradition, but it's to be a global leader in the innovation economy based on a foundation of our authentic communities, our strategic location, and our premium Vermont brand. Because this is what we know right now about the economy, and there are certain things that are emerging. One is that companies these days move to people. It used to be before 1970 that people moved to companies. They had to relocate to the different areas. But Richard Florida was one of the people that really highlighted this, that in fact now companies are showing up where there are critical masses of creative types, where there are innovators that can then foster and grow those. And I see that in my work at Google today, where we locate offices, and we see it with some of the companies that are emerging, particularly here in Chittenden County. We know that Vermont will struggle to compete in commodities. I want to just be clear about that. We need to recognize we will struggle whether it is fluid milk or it's widgets that we're pounding out the same way as can be pounded out anywhere else in the country or anywhere else in the world. The third is that we are unlikely to attract large-scale corporate campuses plunked down in the center of our state. I've been out there recruiting on behalf of the state of Vermont. I will welcome with open arms folks who want to come and do that, but all the evidence shows that's not where our sweet spot is going to be. We will not be able to offer low enough taxes or enough tax incentives to allow them to compete in that area. And in fact, what we succeed in are companies that start small here and expand into those larger campuses when they get that far. The third area that we see emerging, and this may sound like an odd change of subject, is that there are people who are concerned about where their food is coming from. And this is actually very important for us in a state that has a major part of our economy that is agriculture. But finally, there is the overarching understanding that the way that Vermont succeeds is when it is able to send intellectual property out of the state and bring in cash. That we are a state where we can do that kind of ideas and the innovation that comes out of those ideas, and we succeed when we can export those, whether it's value-added food, whether it's software, whether it's comic books, in a way that can actually bring in resources to compensate for those ideas that are going out. And that's just a fundamentally different way of looking at an economy than we have over the last several years. And Vermont has a rich history and tradition in innovation. In the past, machine tools and scales. More recently, in apparel like Jog Bra that was created in a costume shop right over on UVM campus, Logic Associates or even IDX. And then in the future, we have the chance to continue in that innovation space in the areas where there is innovation growth, whether it's in renewable energy, it's in eco and agritourism, or it's in software platforms, which is what dealer.com is, where they're not actually sending out CDs of software or export. They're all using it on one platform and then being able to deliver services from that platform. But we're not actually being able to realize a lot of growth in those particular areas right now. And the question is, what went wrong? And there are a variety of things, some of which are probably some things that you've heard before. But we have not had a comprehensive business plan in the last 8 years. We have fallen behind in fundamental technology and in the platform to be able to build these kinds of companies. We have failed to invest in higher education. We have a disconnect between state leaders and business leaders. And it's been interesting over the last 3+ years that I've been out of Montpelier, just seeing how fundamental that disconnect is. And that's true for both the legislature as well as for the executive.